With John, we ended up helping him with the DNR case. And then when he comes into our office, I realized, wait, he's not driving. And I thought I had heard him mention that he had the OWI problem, but it turns out he didn't have a driver's license, and it was revoked because he had two OWIs, and it had been a while, and he'd gone through the process where he tried to assemble the documentation and everything, and he got to the hearing, and it didn't go well. He didn't really know what to do. He wasn't used to being in court that often, and so it got denied. And he had just been going along thinking that they denied his driver's license, so he didn't have a chance of getting his driver's license back. And I looked at the timelines here, and I'm like, John, I think we can do this, man. Like, we need to try and go and improve your life and change your life. And he was embarrassed about the situation and having to rely on rides and everything. And so we did. We sat him down and we did a thorough evaluation. We set aside all the rumor mill and what people think about the process, and we really got down to the nuts and bolts of it. And I'll tell you what, 4 months later, he's got his driver's license, and I've never seen the guy be so emotional in my entire life. Suddenly he's like, this changed my life. This changed how I can work. This changes, the kinds of things that I can do with my family. It changes the fact that, I have to rely on my family for stuff. Now my family can rely on me. Those kind of changes are really powerful. We take a lot of pride in putting people back in control of their life and helping them through this driver's license restoration process. So look, if Michigan revoked your driver's license after multiple drunk driving convictions, you're probably wondering one thing: how long do I actually have to be sober before I can get my license back? And how do I prove it? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Do you have to go to AA? What happens if you've been sober for a while and you haven't gone through AA? And, what happens if you file too early? And how do you navigate the whole system? I hear it's all online now. License restoration in Michigan, unfortunately today, is a really intimidating and somewhat complex process. If you don't know what you're doing, you're trying to go at it alone. Today, I'm going to try to explain exactly how the Michigan Secretary of State looks at sobriety in a driver's license restoration case and what you need to prove if you want to win your appeal. I'm Keith Stickley, and I'm a criminal defense lawyer here at the Stickley Law Firm located in downtown Hillsdale, Michigan. But we actually help people with driver's license restorations all throughout the state of Michigan, because the good news is now almost all of it is done online via video conferencing, which helps us serve clients all throughout the state. Now, if you've seen any of the other videos here on my YouTube channel, you'll know that I try to make regular content explaining somewhat complicated legal scenarios and issues that common people just like yourself sometimes find themselves in. Driver's license restoration in Michigan is one of the most common things that we're contacted about and that we help clients through. My goal here on the channel is to try and break these legal problems down into easy to understand plain language so that folks can understand what exactly it is that they or somebody they care about are going through. It's been my experience that an educated client who better understands the process ends up with better outcomes, and we're able to work a little bit better together. So let's jump into Michigan driver's license restoration and answer the biggest question, and that is, how long do I have to be sober before I can successfully get my license restored? To start out with, I'll just give you the short answer. So most people need at least 12 months of sobriety before they realistically have a chance of winning a Michigan license restoration case. But it's kind of a tricky standard when we throw out that 12 months of sobriety number, because it's not really written in any statute. It's not technically a specific rule. But in practice, the Secretary of State hearing officers, they almost always expect about a year of sobriety before they'll ever seriously consider giving someone their license back, even some sort of a restricted license. And what seems to trip a lot of people up in the process is, how do you document that 12 months of sobriety? How do you prove, how do you show, outside of just saying in a hearing to a hearing officer, yeah, I don't drink anymore? How do you really show and assemble all the information to properly make your case so that the hearing officer will consider giving you your license back? Because in the end, you're actually dealing with not the court system, but the Secretary of State. They sort of have their own form of administrative judges. They're called a hearing officer. And that hearing officer has a lot of power. They are the ones that conduct the hearing, go over all the documentation, and have the power to stamp whether or not you can get your Michigan driver's license back. A lot of people do ask me, and I understand why. Why does the state care so much about sobriety? And the reason's simple. In Michigan, if you've had multiple alcohol-related driving convictions, the Secretary of State just assumes that you have an alcohol problem, and that's understandable. But before they restore your license, the state wants proof of two specific things. And that is number one, that your alcohol problem is under control. And number two, that your alcohol problem is likely to remain under control. It's not going to become a future issue. And the only way the Secretary of State believes that is if that you can show them some period of real, genuine sobriety. Since we're talking about sobriety, we need to talk about, well, what actually counts as a period of sobriety? What exactly are they looking for? And quite frankly, this is where a lot of people get confused, because sobriety doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to AA, like Alcoholics Anonymous. And a lot of people do AA, and that's great. It's changed a lot of lives. But there are other ways to prove sobriety, and many people prove their sobriety through other ways, like various forms of documented counseling or sobriety monitoring or church involvement or support from family and coworkers. I've been in restoration hearings where the spouse is actually called as a witness and talks about the dramatic shift of when their partner was drinking versus when their partner's not drinking, and the hearing officers can ask questions about how long has it been since this person has had alcohol anywhere around you. There are many other ways to document lifestyle changes as well, but the real question that the hearing officer is going to ask is, has this person truly changed their relationship with alcohol? Quite frankly, if the answer appears to be, well, maybe, well, you're probably going to lose the appeal. One of the biggest mistakes that we say, and I'll give you this big warning right now, is that people file their license appeal too early, especially if they're trying to do it on their own without an attorney. They think, hey, I've been sober for 6 months. I think I saw that on the paper somewhere. Maybe that's enough, right? I mean, that seems reasonable. Or technically, they might qualify to file. But the problem is that if you lose a Michigan license restoration case, you usually have to wait an entire year before you can try again and have another hearing. So if you file too early, it can actually set you back an entire year and drag out in a much longer time frame when you can actually start driving legally with your license. Let's talk about briefly what you need to prove and how you're going to do it, all right? And that is, to win a Michigan license restoration case, you typically need one, a substance abuse evaluation. And if you don't know what that is, you really should get some legal help. Here at the Stickley Law Firm, we work with some providers that do substance abuse evaluations that know exactly what their clients need to present to the Secretary of State to have a successful appeal. Several letters of support are going to be needed from people that you know well. It could be, people in the community, coworkers, family members. And those letters of support, they need to say specific things, very specific things. It's also really important to try to establish a clear sobriety date, a time. When did the drinking stop and when did it get under control? And then there has to be testimony explaining why you stopped drinking and why you won't go back. I got to tell you, in a lot of these hearings, they end up being rather emotional hearings. It's surprising to me, at least it was at first when I started getting into this work, of how emotional and how kind of good it can feel when people are in a hearing and they realize, as they're giving all this information and they're giving testimony, and people are speaking also kind of on their behalf, because they've witnessed their sobriety and how the whole thing has happened. They realize in that moment how far they've come and how much better their life is now, and realizing how much better their life will be once they have their license back. And it tends to be an emotional thing. But regardless, the hearing officer is going to take all of that information. They're going to compare it all very, very carefully. And you got to know that if the dates don't match, if the letters are weak or they contradict each other, or if the substance abuse evaluation has mistakes, the appeal will get denied. They'll get denied even if you're genuinely sober. Now, if your driver's license is revoked because of multiple drinking and driving convictions, and you're considering, trying to make a real earnest effort at getting your license back, and you want a little bit more guidance, I've actually put together a Michigan license restoration checklist. And I want to give this for free. If you look down in the description of the YouTube video, you're going to find a link. And if you click that link and put in some information, you're going to be able to download this. And it's a 5-page, really thorough guide in how the entire process works and the checklist that you need to make sure that you hit in order to have a successful license restoration. And of course, if you're thinking about filing a restoration and you want to have an attorney look over everything, represent you in the process, I encourage you to call us here at the Stickley Law Firm. We take a lot of pride in the work that we do. We're good at this. We've been successful at this. And we really do like helping people. It's really rewarding seeing the change, the positive change we can help people have in their life once they get their license back. Michigan is not an easy state to live in, with our complete lack of good, effective public transportation. And it's an empowering thing when people, they overcome obstacles that a lot of times they've been embarrassed about for a long time. And then they get that privilege to drive back, and they become more self-sufficient. So if you think you might be ready to try and get your driver's license restored, reach out to us. Give us a call. Give me a call here at the Stickley Law Firm, or click the link below if you want. Fill out the information and download the checklist there, and see where you stand. Let's have a thorough conversation and evaluation. See where you might be at in the process and what it's going to take to get you over the finish line so that you can get your driver's license again and start driving, start being a more mobile member of society in a legal way. Do me a huge favor. If you found this content helpful, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. We really do try to regularly post legal content to help our viewers out. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you real soon.